Okay, so WomanSkeptic asks, I think you should write a guide or podcast or something about how to appreciate modern art. I would love something like that because I don't get it, but I'd like to be able to pretend I do. So I'm just going to explain the appeal of modern art because this is something I didn't understand for a very long time until I forced myself to be immersed in it. I used to visit the Dia Beacon, which is a minimalist gallery. It's a classic minimalist gallery. All minimalist artists from the 20th century, like Dan Flavin, what's his name? Sol LeWitt, Richard Serra. And at first I hated that stuff. I walked through the museum and I just thought it was bullshit, like everybody else. But after being forced to do reports on it, and it kind of opened my mind a little bit, I actually realized I greatly enjoyed the artwork there. Believe it or not, I went from hating modern art to actually enjoying it. Basically, all you got to know about modern art is that the people who make it, besides the accusation that they are laundering money or scam artists or whatever, that's partially true. The main thing you got to understand is that most of these people are autistic. Most of these people they have little fixations. Okay, they have these little indescribable fixations on things. Okay, on textures, on colors, on subject matter. And let me get a little bit into that. When I was a boy, I was a very strange boy because I am mildly autistic. I didn't know until I was, much older. But I would have these little fixations, right? These interests that would consume me for months at a time. And then I would move on to the next thing. So maybe 1 month I'm obsessed with Australia and Aboriginal culture. This is when I was like 7 years old. I would tell everybody at school when I was like 5 or 6, or 7 about Aboriginals and didgeridoos and the little dots they paint on the boomerangs they make or whatever. And then another month I'd be obsessed with jellyfish, right? Studying everything about different species of jellyfish and like the Portuguese man of war. Or the next month I'd be obsessed with taxidermy, and I would start collecting taxidermy. And I would actually bring taxidermy to school. I would collect I collected a lot of pieces. I would save up my money and buy like a flying lizard, those gliding lizards that drop out of the trees, or I'd get an octopus in a block of acrylic, or I would get a what's another one I have? Well, I have an eel. I have a moray eel. I have a pheasant. I have a what else do I have? I have a set of beetles. I have a tiger beetle. I have lots of things. I have a tarantula, scorpions. But anyways, like, yeah, to have these fixations, and I collected fossils. I had a whole shelf full of fossils, and I was obsessed with dinosaurs when I was little. And I would just pretend to be a dinosaur, and it was really strange. And then I'd be, obsessed with, cryptozoology, and I had a huge book and everything about cryptids, and I'd get really scientific and autistic about keeping everything consistent, right? So when we would talk about dinosaurs, I would get really frustrated when people would do would talk about them in ways that are like unscientific. Like they would describe them as having like sluggish tails, or stuff like that. I had to have it really scientifically accurate. I didn't like goofy dinosaurs or anything like that. Like kiddie stuff. You know, and even today I still have these fixations. I still have them. I've had them my whole life. I mean, in 2018 I was obsessed with Memphis Milano furniture, like 80s Italian design, and I was studying all different types of like, postmodern Italian design companies like Alessi, right? And I was just obsessed with, you know, Ettore Satsas and Olivetti and all that nonsense. And currently, my fixations are on stuff like narcissism, on what am I doing now? Oh God, for a little while it was like color shift paints, anything holographic or iridescent. I was obsessed with iridescence. Um, yeah, but basically these modern artists, they have these stupid little fixations, and they make art about it, and they just have nonsense in their heads. Like they just like, oh, I mean, oh, wood grain. I really like, unfinished wood grain. I really like unfinished, like, balsa wood or whatever. Like, like cheap, pine lumber, like sheets of pine that you get at like Home Depot or whatever. And they make this like autistic sculpture with it, and then they try to get people to be interested in it, and nobody finds it interesting. And it's very heartbreaking for people like us because nobody shares the same autistic fixations. Now, modern art sort of let people like us into the art world, I guess. It sort of opened the floodgates of autists all over the world to share their autism and to share how much they love, like geometric shapes that are made with pencil or something like that, or like drawing all over a wall with marker, like that Mr. Doodle guy, right? I mean, if you've seen the artwork I make, and you just think about the context, like what the hell inspired someone to draw some of this stuff? Like what is um what is the train of reasoning that led me to draw like um some of the weird stuff you find on my Instagram? It's just these little fixations, and mm, it's so narrow. Like it's such a narrow way of thinking that it just looks mentally ill. It just looks insane to like a normal person. Um, and so that's the big secret of modern art. And there's also like there's people just say, oh, it's laundering, it's just money laundering, and that's not entirely true. I mean, it's true to some extent, but we can never know the full extent. But no, I mean, like there is something genuine to modern art, and there is something you can appreciate about it. Modern art isn't necessarily modern per se. It's not necessarily liberal or political. It's just sort of a series of techniques that were never really used in traditional cultures. Like we didn't really have like this minimalist kind of aesthetic, for example. We didn't really practice like maximalism or some of the like the more advanced color techniques, like geometric techniques. We've really explored like the foundations of what art is supposed to be by exploring these kind of abstractions. But I mean, people today still don't really know what art is, and there hasn't really been solid foundation for the like foundations of art, let alone psychology. And that's sort of what I've been exploring with Bill Gates' work, is trying to apply a lot of Bill Gates' ideas to the foundations of art, fiction, and psychology, so that we can finally fully understand these topics and be able to create great stuff at any skill level, I guess, or in any medium. Now, one thing I also want to point out is my idea about completion. So another part of the appeal of modern art is that it's very good at generating completion without a whole lot of like effort. Okay, so basically the idea of completion is that our brains are wired to resolve ambiguity. So, for example, if you walk down to a river and you look down into that river, well, your brain is going to start filling in the blanks. It's going to start imagining what's at the bottom of that river, right? Whether consciously or unconsciously, it's going to start, forcing you to do that, because it has to completely understand its environment, right? It has to make a as good of a map as possible, right? So it's got to be able to see what's behind that tree, right? It's got to be able to know what's in that closet that just made a noise. So, art basically manipulates this process by forcing people into states where they're resolving ambiguity, basically. So that's why, like, the greatest art always has sort of a mysterious sort of tinge to it. And basically all modern art does this. It just does weird things in in a way that appears very intentional. So if you look at like I don't know, like Saul LeWitt, for example, right? And he's making all these giant drawings with like numbers and stuff, and he's got like a long ass essay explaining his reasoning behind it. Well, I mean, there's a big contrast between the ambiguity there and also the sense of intention, right? Because there's a very like the way in which he did it, the way in which he made this art, presented this art, has a very strong sense of intention. So that is going to rile up your need to resolve the ambiguity there, right? And so what happens is when you're in the state of resolving, well, a bunch of images flash, right, based on what you've seen or read, and each of those images will be wired to a different feeling. And so you get this situation where lots of images are flashing and lots of feelings are happening. So that is the appeal of modern art, I guess. I guess as far as the economic incentives, well, modern art has a lower barrier to entry because it's a lower skill level. Like you basically just need like 2D skills in order to do that. You basically just have to pull off the completion effect. Basically, you got to get people into a state where they're constantly going through completion, and you just do that by contrasting the intention with the ambiguity. So that's how that works. And at the same time you try to make it kind of visually appealing. So you use like pleasing colors or something like that, colors that work together. And so and we also live in a liberal society, so liberals like things that are deconstructed or whatever, postmodern. I think a lot of people lump in degenerate subject matter with modern art, but subject matter is subject to change. So, it's abstract art is not like the kind of art we find in museums is part of a cultural context, I guess. It's they promote a lot of stuff like abortion and gay sex and racial stuff, and that's what you'll find at museums, and that's why a lot of people don't like modern art is because of the, it promotes everything that's gross, everything that's like, um, you know, everything that goes against our senses, I guess. Everything that we as humans tend to revile. Like we tend to revile fat people, for example, and they'll try to like, because they have this inclusive way of thinking, they will try to like promote that through their art. And if you actually try to like get a grant, you'll know that they try to find stuff like that. That's what they're trying to find. They're trying to find, minority. Well, actually, minority is a psychologically manipulative term. When you find um, they're looking for like non-white artists that like want to like do gross things with their art, basically. And so there's just like so like contemporary art doesn't offer a lot for the public because the public, first off, the public is normie. The public doesn't understand this autism, and second off, the subject matter is degenerate. The subject matter is gross and just unpleasant to look at. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, there's nothing necessarily degenerate about, you know, what's his name? Oh God, he's actually my favorite at the Dia Beacon. Um, not Richard Serra, Dan Flavin. So that's all I have to say.